One day after nursing homes and assisted living facilities began receiving COVID-19 vaccines, state health officials have given an update on the vaccine distribution. Good evening, I'm Shannon Heggie.
And I'm Kim Calooney, and it comes as some health officials are criticizing a slower than expected rollout across the country. 12 News reporter Brandon Truitt is live in Providence with what the Department of Health is saying about where things stand tonight. Brandon?
Well, Shannon, so far about 13,000 people in Rhode Island have received a first dose. The Department of Health admits that they have experienced some speed bumps along the way. What they're really looking for tonight is consistency.
We are hopeful that we'll be getting higher levels of allocation at some point.
Tonight, questions over whether Operation Warp Speed is living up to its name, and more so, how any delays might impact us here.
The challenge is that it hasn't been consistent every week.
The Rhode Island Department of Health says although the feds originally promised higher totals, they've not taken any recent cuts. This is happening nationwide, with states forced to adjust in real time.
And that's really what they're trying to make happen at the federal level, is to give us consistent numbers so that we can plan a little bit more smoothly.
With consistency, the state says they'll be able to plan timeline and allocation. Right now, it's unclear when phase 1 will even end or phase 2 will begin.
You have to build in that there are going to be hitches in this process, and we're already seeing it.
Dr. Atul Gawande works at Brigham and Women's and in Harvard School of Medicine. He's also on President-elect Joe Biden's Coronavirus Advisory Board. He says any hiccups in the system could start adding up. Simply put, the longer it takes to vaccinate the public, the longer the pandemic will last.
I think the realistic picture is to expect that it could be fall before things are really, enough people are being vaccinated that we're getting back to normal, and that it might be summer before the general public is really accessing the vaccine.
So looking ahead, part of phase 1 includes so-called hotspot communities, places that were the hardest hit. So starting tomorrow, Central Falls residents can begin receiving vaccinations. Now, the Department of Health warns this is not a free-for-all. It's very specific demographics who will start receiving the vaccine by tomorrow. And again, by the end of the week, it will open up to more people living in Central Falls. That's the latest here live in Providence. I'm Brandon Truitt, 12 News.
Meanwhile, health officials gave an update on the state's vaccination efforts this afternoon. So far, the health department says nearly 13,000 Rhode Islanders have received the first dose.
12 News reporter Brandon Truitt pressed health officials today on whether that number should be higher at this point. He joins us live now from the Department of Health with what he's learned. Brandon?
Well, Kim, people like Dr. Anthony Fauci and Dr. Ashish Shah say they wish things were moving a little bit faster, adding that many states are receiving less doses than initially expected. At the same time, this comes as the Rhode Island Department of Health tells me that they are continuing to adjust in real time.
It's been a very exciting launch to the week for us.
Another busy week for the Rhode Island Department of Health, but they're the first to admit there's still a long way to go. Right now, Rhode Island is working its way through phase 1. That's about 150,000 people, including frontline workers, first responders, and those in congregate settings. Phase 1 expected to run through at least February. The start of phase 2 depends on the rate the state gets vaccines.
We are hopeful that we'll be getting higher levels of allocation at some point.
The state says they are receiving roughly 14,000 doses a week, far less than what they were originally expecting from the federal government. But it's happening to states across the country. What the Department of Health says they need is consistency.
At least we are aware that we will be receiving a steady supply of vaccine over the course of the next few months.
On the flip side, the state says every bit of the initial round of doses has already been used. They don't give out a first shot unless they can guarantee the second. It's more about making sure it gets here in the first place.
Our ability to distribute it is fully dependent on what we receive.
So also included in phase 1 are hotspot communities, places where the virus has hit the hardest. So starting tomorrow, Central Falls residents, some of them there, can start receiving vaccinations. We understand this will be mostly elderly people and caregivers. It will ultimately expand to include more people in the coming days. Live in Providence, Brandon Truitt, 12 News.